Yishar koach to all of the organizers of this event, and to answer the question, yes, People of the Book is a great theme for this year. Distinguished guests, scholars, and friends, it is an honor to stand before you today to speak about a subject deeply woven into the fabric of Jewish heritage. There are many angles from which to approach this topic, People of the Book, especially as we relate it to the events and communities here in Europe. After all, many of us here are part of this remarkable group mentioned in the world bestseller, the Bible. It is a book about us, about our past history, present, and future. It is a topic that honors history, culture, and language, a deep and profound connection that spans centuries. As I grapple with how best to present this, I am being cautious as I am reminded of the words of the great scholar Eliezer, who once said, "The Jewish people has always been the people of the book, but we are also the people who can't stop writing." On a more serious level, this also speaks to our relationship with the written word, a bond that has shaped not only our past, but our very identity. But before I delve into the more vital aspect of this subject, let me start with an old joke, a light-hearted anecdote that in its simplicity beautifully encapsulates what it means to live as a member of the people of the book. Usually, when you send a child to college, you give him money, you buy him clothes, you give him a new book bag, maybe some things from the dorm. But here we have a Jewish father who is sending his son to college, and he presents him with 3 books, of course. A Siddur, a prayer book, a dictionary, and the Talmud. "Abba," he says, what is it for? Why are you giving me those books? He said, son, listen carefully. The Siddur is for you to remind you always to be thankful. The dictionary, always to choose the right words, and the Talmud to remember always to ask. The son goes off to college, he takes with him the 3 books, and several months later he calls his father all excited, Abba, I followed your instruction. Every morning I wake up, I open the Siddur, I pray to God, I thank him for the wonderful notes that I'm getting. I'm very careful when I choose my words, when I write, when I speak. And as for the Talmud, every time the professor explains something or gives us an answer, I always argue with him. I never accept the answer right away. The term People of the Book is not merely a self-identification. It is a designation that extends beyond Judaism, acknowledges within Islam and Christianity. The Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah recognizes Jews and Christians, calling them the people of the book and affirming their place in the divine order alongside those who seek righteousness. It claims, indeed, those who believe and those who were Jews or Christians or Sabians, those who believe in Allah and the last day and did righteousness will have the reward in their Lord, and no fear will there be concerning them, not will they grieve. This recognition highlights the profound role of sacred text in shaping not only religious belief, but also the moral and cultural frameworks of society throughout history. For the Jewish people, survival has never been guaranteed by physical strongholds, political dominion, or sheer numbers. Instead, it has been safeguarded by words, by our ability to write, teach, and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. Jewish history is not simply recorded in books. It exists through books. From the Torah's divine instruction commanding Moses to inscribe and recount its teaching, to the medieval commentaries that debate every nuance of sacred text, Jewish continuity has been sustained through literacy, debate, and transmission. And God said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in the book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. Here, as it appears and illustrated on the front of a page from the Babylonian Talmud printed in Vienna in 1795. And this book is found in the rescued library in Izmir, Turkey, that I will tell you about it in a little bit. This devotion to textual presentation is not merely an act of safeguarding history. It is an active living engagement with knowledge. The legacy of Jewish manuscripts, illuminated text, and rabbinic writing is not confined to museums or archives. They are part of an ongoing dialogue, one that spans generations, land, and civilization. To be a people of the book is to recognize that words have power, the power to preserve, to challenge, to connect, and to inspire. Across cultures, books have been central to preserving faith and identity. Barcelona, the city where we gather today, was once a center of Jewish scholarship. Here, rabbis, poets, philosophers, and translators expanded and transmitted knowledge. The great Ramban, Nachmanides, a leading Catalan 13th century rabbi, Jewish scholar, philosopher, and Kabbalist who lived and taught here, in his introduction to the book of Genesis, he explains, the Torah speaks in hints about the past, alludes to the future, and its words are eternal. There is no single moment or place in which its wisdom is confined, for it extends from the creation of the world to the end of time. He understood that the Torah is not just historical or legal text, but an ongoing living wisdom that applies across all eras and location. Ramban, as both rationalist and mystic, saw Jewish learning as something that continuously unfolds, adapting and deepening with each generation. Even when the Jewish community was expelled from Spain in 1492, it was not the end of our story. The books traveled with us as these people finding new homes in North Africa, the Ottoman Empire, and beyond. The reverence of books and knowledge is not unique to Judaism. In Islamic world, the preservation of knowledge was seen as an act of devotion. The great philosopher Ibn Rushd, or as we know him as Averroes, an Andalusian 12th century polymath, argued that civilization flourishes when knowledge is nurtured, studied, and expanded. Similarly, Erasmus of Rotterdam, a 16th century Dutch Renaissance humanist, theologian, and scholar, emphasized that literacy and learning are essential to both faith and governance. It is notable, though, that while both Muslim and Christian scholars advocated for study and literacy, the first printing houses in the Ottoman Empire were Jewish, printing works by rabbis in Livorno, Venice, Salonika, Constantina, Istanbul, and Izmir. Yet, preservation is not only about retaining the past. It is about ensuring that knowledge remains accessible, vibrant, and engaged with by future generations. Books locked away in archives may endure physically, but their essence can only be preserved through study and discourse. A book that is not read, questioned, and reinterpreted is not more than an artifact without a voice. Jewish tradition teaches that the Torah is not meant to be an idle relic, but a living guide. And this brings to mind our Torah scroll. It is read every Shabbat in the synagogue, without vowels or punctuations. Its sacred words rely on the chazan, or sometimes a bar bat mitzvah teenager, to bring them to life through melodic chanting. Each note and inflection not only preserve tradition, but also breathe meaning into the text, transforming the written words into living, resonant story. Rabbi Louis Finkelstein once said, "When we pray, we talk to God. When we study, God answers." Engaging a European city's inhabitants in a dialogue around the theme People of the Book fosters interfaith understanding, cultural appreciation, and historical awareness. Christian scholars played a significant role in Hebrew studies, indirectly shaping Hebrew printing production. In France, figures like Jean Morin and Richard Simon advanced biblical scholarship, fueling intellectual engagement with Hebrew manuscript and increasing demand for Hebrew writings and printing. This, in spite of the French monarchy exercising strict control over Hebrew printing, requiring privilège du roi, royal privilege, for religious or foreign language texts. Thanks to the Christian scholars, La Bibliothèque Royale, now the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, held one of Europe's largest Hebrew manuscript collections. Across Europe in the 16th century through the 19th century, similar scholars contributed to the preservation and study of Hebrew text, fostering Jewish-Christian intellectual exchange. Here you can see some of the names of the scholars who lived during the 16th and 19th century. And also today, a Polish professor, Professor Schlanger, specialized in Hebrew manuscript. Today she is the president of the Oxford Center for Hebrew and Jewish Studies. In Germany, Professor Schmidtke, academic scholar, Islamic and Jewish Studies. And in Italy, Mauro Perani, a professor at the University of Bologna, specialized in Hebrew paleography. Dialogue around books, often led by Jewish organizations, remains a vibrant tradition in Europe cities today. To name a few, in Paris, France, Journée de la culture du livre juif, organized by Judaïsme en Mouvement. Salon des écrivains du Bnei Brit, hosted by Bnei Brit Ben Gurion Lodge. Salon du livre des mondes juifs, organized by Sefarim à Montpellier, and Salon littéraire de la Viso, hosted annually for 68 years by the Women International Zionist organization, Vizo. In Berlin, Germany, a book club hosted by the Jewish Museum of Berlin. This initiative explores Jewish texts, such as Song of Songs, explored this year in June 2024. Book Table in Glass Courtyard on October 7, 2024, the Jewish Museum of Berlin curated a selection of books for visitors to browse and discuss. In London, United Kingdom, Jewish Book Week, established in 1952, this annual literary festival explores Jewish literature, ideas, and culture. In Ukraine, Meridian Chernowitz International Poetry Festival, supported by the Ukraine Jewish Encounter, fostering Ukraine-Jewish literary dialogue. In Barcelona, Spain, Sefer Barcelona Jewish Book Festival, an annual event celebrating Jewish literature in the broadest sense. From historic Hebrew printing to modern literary festivals, the engagement with Jewish texts continues to serve as a bridge between cultures, shaping European intellectual and cultural landscapes. This brings me to a logistic nuance that is worth considering. In Hebrew, people of the book is often rendered as Am HaSefer, which translates more accurately as nation of the book. In Arabic, as it appears in the Quran, Ahl al-Kitab, Ahl, people, emphasize affiliation or relationship of a person to a family, household, or a community. Islam historically viewed Jews as religious communities rather than a distinct nation. Ahl al-Kitab, as opposed to Ummah al-Kitab, which means nation of the book. This distinction is significant. The word Am, nation, does not merely denote a group of individuals. It implies collective responsibility and a shared destiny. The preservation of our text is not the duty of scholars alone, but of an entire people. A nation that defines itself through books is a nation that values education, debate, and the unbroken thread of continuity. In today's digital age, books are evolving. Jewish texts are now accessed through databases, apps, and artificial intelligence. But the essence of Am HaSefer remains unchanged. Whether in a yeshiva in Jerusalem, a university library in Paris, or an online chavruta across continent, we continue to embody this identity. The connection between a nation and Torah is reinforced in the book of Deuteronomy. The people of Israel, before entering the land, are identified as a nation. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding, in the sight of the nations who shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Later on in the book of Psalm we find, this shall be written for the generation to come. A nation that is created shall praise the Lord. It is no longer a request from God to pass it to one person, to Joshua, but to a nation that was just formed and will remain the nation from then on. Rabbinic literature also emphasizes that the Torah is not just a book of laws, but a foundation of Jewish nationalhood. In Sifrei 37, a classic rabbinic midrashi commentary on Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, and Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, a question is asked. How did Moses know that Israel would accept the Torah? This teaches that he brought it down to them and they received it with love and joy. And how do we know that Israel's existence depends on the Torah? As it is said, for it is your life and the length of your days. The word Israel in the text is referred to Am Israel, making Am HaSefer a fitting expression. This understanding led me to one of the most profound experiences of my life, the discovery and rescue of an ancient rabbinic library in Izmir, Turkey. Being a Jewish educator, I was invited by the Jewish community of Izmir, Turkey, to help establish an educational program for the 130 children, preparing them for a future deeply rooted in Jewish culture and tradition. I arrived with great enthusiasm, eager to give back to a community that was both my ancestral home and my birthplace. What I did not anticipate was that beyond shaping the community's future, I would also have the profound honor of preserving its rich cultural past. On the last day of my 1-week visit, I was taken for a tour of Jewish Izmir. When I first entered her room in Chacham Chaneh, the old rabbinate house in the center of a bustling market, I found not just books, but echoes of scholars long past waiting to be heard once more. Working to preserve this text made me realize that restoring a library is not just about ink on paper or parchment. It is about reclaiming a legacy and ensuring that forgotten wisdom is not lost to time. Here, you can see the Chacham Chaneh on the left side right here, the central rabbinate house. At the moment I discovered the books in a room with a collapsing roof and water seeping through the walls. In the summer of 1999, we transferred the collection of the books to a new location, a room in the Jewish hospital. Below, on the other side, the same house as it stands today. As you can see, rescuing the books set in motion the transformation of their faith. With each fragile page salvaged, The voice of past generations were revived, the wisdom of rabbis, and the teaching of scholars. It is essential to recognize that this mission extends far beyond one location. Across Europe, similar endeavors have taken place, each one reinforcing the unbroken chain of Jewish learning and cultural survival. Jewish communities across Europe have historically endured persecution, war, and displacement, often leading to the destruction or loss of the sacred text. These books and manuscripts, whether religious, philosophical, or communal records, were not merely collection of words, but lifeline connecting generations of Jews to their heritage, intellectual tradition, and identity. The effort to rescue and preserve this text has been an enduring mission, an act of both defiance and devotion. In Prague, Czech Republic, there the Nazis ironically preserved Jewish books for a planned museum of the extinct race, which were later reclaimed and studied. In Vilna, Lithuania, the Paper Brigade risked their lives to smuggle and hide Jewish manuscripts from Nazi destruction. In Sarajevo, Bosnia, the Sarajevo Haggadah, a medieval Jewish manuscript, was saved multiple times, including during the Bosnian War. And in Amsterdam, Netherlands, the Portuguese Jewish community amassed one of Europe's most important libraries, ensuring continuity after the Inquisition. Rescuing the nearly 2,000 books of the Rabbinic Library of Izmir began in 1999 and was completed in 2025. In 2024, we collaborated with the National Library of Israel to include 630 images of marginalia, handwritten notes and dedications of rabbis and scholars on their Ktiv website. Let me share with you images of some of these books and tell you about the many things we salvaged beyond the paper, the cover, and the ink. If books could talk, what could they tell us? They will tell us about the rabbis, their leadership, and their involvement in the community. These are images that we found as marginalia. You can see on one of them is the signature of Rabbi Avraham Palachi. He studied with the book and he signed his name on it. And over here of Rabbi Yitzhak Crispin. In the 1870, the chief rabbi of Izmir, Avraham Palachi, endorsed the establishment of schools by the Alliance Israélite Universelle, schools that served not only the Jewish community, but the wider Turkish community that lived in Izmir. Books can tell us about their ages. Here you can see some of the oldest books that we found in the library from the 17th century. These are books that the rabbis of Izmir wrote, some of them, and these are also books that with them they studied. They will tell us about the different books that rabbi studies and wrote. We have a lot of books of responsa, questions that rabbis were asked from other rabbis from other countries, debates about laws, Jewish laws, and also many of the rabbis printed later on the sermons that they delivered in their synagogues. We also found books of ethics, Musar, commentaries of the Torah, books of the Zohar and commentaries on the Zohar, some text, stories from the Talmud. They will tell us about the many printing houses that existed under mostly the Ottoman Empire, Constantina, as you can see, Izmir, Salonika, Berdichev, Venice, Livorno. They will tell us about the different rulers, because every book, most of the books that were printed in under the Ottoman Empire, there is always a dedication to the Sultan that allowed the Jews to print and to study. They will teach us about Gematria. One of the reasons that it took several years for me to put together a catalog was that instead of writing just the year of the book, usually what they did is they would print an entire sentence from the Torah, they would highlight some of the letters, and then we had to transfer the letter into a numeric value and then calculate the year of the book. So you can imagine when you have 2,000 books, how long does it take to take each book out of the shelf, read, take the letters, calculate, and record it. So they will tell us about the different languages. Here you can see we have many books in Ladino. Many of the sermons that the rabbi gave were in Ladino. We can see the printing. Most of the books were printed in Rashi, of course, because at that time all commentaries books were printed with Rashi letters. And you can see also the solitreo. This is the handwritten characters that Sephardic rabbis used to use with their handwriting. So we have 450 books in the library of Izmir that was rescued with commentaries like this and notes on the sides of the pages. They will tell us about their community. Some of the things that we found among the books were calendars from different years. We found also some prayers that were very unique to the community of Izmir that they will chant during certain holidays or certain events. Another thing that was we found some newspapers, very old newspapers that told us about the community, but we also found something very interesting. Every time that they had, families had yortzeit, we call it in Ladino, we call it el meldado, when somebody passed away and they do the memory every year, they used to print little booklets that had either part of the books of Psalm, or would have a part from the Zohar, a chapter from the Zohar, and on the cover of the book, they will print or they will handwrite the names of all the members of the family that they will mention their name during that same service. So people actually are able to go and look at those books and find the whole historical names of all the people in their family. But also, it was very interesting to read some of the stories about the community and things that they used to do and have during old time. And we also found little pieces of paper with all sorts of words of wisdom, like here, the Rabbi Palachi, who said that the one who forgets about his history forgets himself. Thanks to the Rothschild Foundation, Hanadiv Europe, and our esteemed board member, Dita Kiryati, and her foundation, we have transformed this collection from a mere depository of books and boxes, as you can see on the left side, on the right side over there, into a true library, complete with a catalog and space shared with the world. Dita, who has dedicated more than a decade to preserving the legacy of Izmir's Jewish community through the restoration of its synagogues, has been the driving force behind this endeavor as well. She has tirelessly ensured that I reach numerous places to speak about the library, connect with people, and engage them in this vital project. It is largely thanks to her and to Uri Barner that I stand before you today. The Jewish community of Izmir and I are forever grateful for her unwavering dedication and involvement. Thank you, Dita. Recently, the National Library of Israel uploaded a collection of 630 images of this library's marginalia to Ktiv, its digital manuscript repository. The grand opening of Izmir Historic Rabbinic Library, home of 1,800 books, took place on December 18, 2025. And later I'll show you a little video about this celebration. As we reflect today on the theme of People of the Book and the power of preservation, I invite you to consider how we, as ambassadors of the European Jewish Days of Culture, can make Jewish heritage more accessible, engaging, and meaningful for our communities. What stories, texts, or traditions can we highlight to strengthen local connections? How can we use modern technology and interdisciplinary collaboration to preserve and share this legacy? In what ways can we involve younger generation in cultural transmission? How do we address the challenges of preservation in communities with declining Jewish populations? This question should guide our planning and ensuring that our efforts not only honor the past, but also fosters an inclusive and dynamic future for Jewish heritage in Europe. Let us approach our work with creativity, commitment, and a shared vision for cultural continuity. While we are known as people of the book, let us relate to the Hebrew rendering and the significance of being a nation of the book. The true essence of being the nation of the book is not found in the pages themselves, but in the act of opening them, engaging with their contents, and ensuring that their wisdom is not only remembered, but also lived. Our legacy is not one of silent libraries, but of voices, of teachers, and of learners who carry forward the eternal conversation. May we all continue to uphold this sacred responsibility, ensuring that knowledge does not simply endure, but thrives. Thank you so much. Thank you. Community of Izmir. Here I'm sharing with them some of the findings in the library. We have fixed the mezuzah also. This is Sarah Pardo, one of the people that initiated this major endeavor. She was the vice president of education of the community of Izmir. She is the one who invited me to come to Izmir to help with the start of a Jewish school. They still have a Jewish school there for 25 years now. And she is really a very important person of the community who really pushes many, many wonderful projects in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hola. Thank you very much, Dita. It's been a wonderful presentation, not only very informative, you didn't only teach us about academy, about study, but also about life. Thank you very much. We have some minutes for maybe some questions from the audience, if you will. Does anybody want to? Thank you very much.
I was just curious. Well, thank you again for all the work you've done in Izmir with the library. If you need to affiliate with a university so scholars have greater access, it seems like in Izmir you wouldn't have the intellectual depth to make it worthwhile. How do you share that information?
It's a very good question, and actually one of the requirements from the Rothschild Foundation when we got the grant was to make sure that we do exactly that. So right now, not long ago, I just finished to put together the catalog. As I told you, it took a long time, but very soon, first of all, a lot of the things going to be uploaded on the Ktiv website at the National Library, but also the Jewish community of Izmir has a website, the JCC website, and there's going to be a special section just for the library. So people who want to visit the library, as you know, Turkish is not a very popular place for Jews now to visit and Israelis to visit. So it's the location where the books are right now. They are in a Jewish hospital in Turkey, in a very special location that right now we have cameras and it's very well secured. So people who will want to visit, scholars or anybody who wants to come and see the books, There's going to be a process that they will have to go through for security reason, of course, through the website of the Jewish community of Izmir, where they will have to fill up certain questions, answer certain questions. And then we have a librarian, actually, somebody who's in charge of the room and of the books. And anybody who will be interested in visiting is more than welcome to come, to check the books, to see what we have there. So we're going to try to advertise as much as we can once we're really pretty well set. It's a good question, though. Anybody else has any question?
I do have one.
Okay.
It's fine.
Are you allowed?
I am very curious, seeing those pictures of these books, I'm very curious about the study of the object itself. Do you at any point also interpret what the scars of the paper can tell us of maybe where it was used, if there was light on it, maybe it shows you that it was near a window. I don't know. Is there any kind of?
It's a fun question that you're asking, because in one instant we've been looking on the books. One of the things that I used to do, especially the first year, because I've been working with the books, and I was then studying for my doctorate degree. So I really wanted to know more about the books. So every day at 3:00 in the afternoon, I will stop whatever I was doing. I will stand in the middle of the room, and I will just turn 10 times, point to a location, pull out a book, and sit for a couple of hours just to study. And in one of the times that I was studying, I was looking, and there was a hair. So I was like wondering, I was looking at it, and I said, maybe a rabbi who was studying, pulling his beard maybe, or something like that. Many of the books that we found them in very bad condition, because they've been locked in a room that, as you could see, they were locked in the room, the roof fell down, lots of water. Actually, when I entered the room for the first time, that was like the last place that I visited just before I left to go back to the United States. I was there with Sarah, that you saw at the end. She was the vice president who took me on a tour. So she opened the door. She had this big key. She opened the door. We went in, and I saw the books, and I started pulling some book. And the first thing that I did, I turned to Sarah, and I said, "Sarah, you are murderers." And she looked at me, she said, "What are you talking? What are you saying?" I said, "Sarah, this is your history. That's your community. Look, the water, you're destroying all of this book. They have to get out of here right away." She said, "Dina, we don't know what to do. They told us to lock them behind door, and sometimes we show it to people. People will say they will come, but nobody comes back." So I said to her, "Listen, Sarah, it was February when I was there, and as a director of a school, I had to go back to work. I said to her, during the summer, if you find a location for me, a place where I can put the books, I promise you, just send me a fax, I'll be back." She said, yeah, everybody says the same thing, nobody comes back, she says. I said, "I promise you, just send me a fax and I'll come back." And she did. 2 months later, she sent me a fax. She said, "Dina, the Jewish hospital, 3rd floor." Actually, by the way, that's the same hospital where I was born. So on the 3rd floor, I put shelves. "Please, are you coming?" And then that same summer I came, and that's when we transferred. So most of the books came with very, very bad condition, lots with some wet, with some stains on them. And thank God that we salvaged whatever we were able to salvage at that time. But from time to time we find little notes. For example, like the phrase of Rabbi Palachi that was written on a little piece of paper, just in one page in the middle of one book. So we found a lot of little things like that. We found tickets from the Jewish Congress. Somebody had an invitation, so we found it in one of the books. I don't know who. So we kept everything. So whoever visits the synagogue, whoever visits the library, we have a big box with all sorts of little things that were found within the pages that tell some kind of a story, which is very interesting too. Yeah. Exactly. For right now, they're in a box, and we just let people come and look at them. And we found also a lot of notebooks with handwritten. Actually, the expert at the National Library, they are trying to decipher and find out who wrote them, because some of them have just sermons in them. I mean, really, we found a very big treasure there, especially for the community. Some autographs and signature of rabbis that are very, very important. And I'm glad that we were able to salvage it. And allow the rest of the Jewish community in the world to be able to see it.
We have any more questions? Thank you very, very much, Dina, for your work and for sharing it with us.